What would your mother think? Sometimes there are some men that will ask a woman, what would her mother think? Or what would her mother say? Or whether her mother would agree with her doing or saying whatever she's doing and saying, or whatever her life is at the moment. So I want to answer that. My grandmother was married, I believe, 67 years. My mother was married 44 years. Both my grandmother and my mother outlived their husbands. Both of them had abusive marriages. My grandmother's marriage was physically abusive, and it was not physically abusive the entire time they were married, because once he got older, he wasn't as able to do certain things to her. My mother's marriage was physically abusive in the terms of him throwing things and putting his hand through walls and things like that. But it was emotionally abusive. And my grandmother's marriage was also emotionally abusive. So my grandmother was the kind of grandmother that some people talk about, that cooked everything from scratch, that had a garden. She sewed all of her kids' clothes. She was a stay-at-home mom. She had a high school education, and then she got married right after high school and never worked a day in her life. And she had to ask her husband for money to do everything that she did, was completely dependent on him. I remember her taking me to the library every week during the summer, because I spent the summers with her, and her wanting me to be educated and have options. But also, along with that, when I was reading books and I got to be too interested in books, she began to tell me things like, be careful, men don't like smart women, boys don't like smart girls. And my first response when she told me that was, why would I worry about boys liking me? And she laughed, because at the time she said that to me, for the first time, I was probably 9. And so, of course, she was like, oh gosh, she's not even thinking about that yet. Okay, I'm going to laugh. But I'm 40. Well, I was going to say I'm 44, but I'm 54 is what I meant to say. I'm 54 now. And I almost have the same exact response. Why would I be worried about boys liking me or changing my behavior to make boys like me? I think a lot of us want to be liked, but not at the expense of us giving up something that we love. And I definitely love reading and knowledge. And so, yeah, if that's the cost, I will pass. Now, fast forward, I got married right out of college. So I did exactly what I was supposed to do: go to college, get a job, get married, have kids. That was a script I was given. That was a script I followed. So my grandmother, my mother were very happy. We got her college degree, job, marriage, kids. She's set. And when that marriage became abusive, unlike my mother, unlike my grandmother, I left. And that was shocking to my grandmother. She never spoke to me about me leaving, not once ever. My mother told me that she was proud of me. And she was so proud that the man that I married in my second marriage was such an amazing father. She had never seen a man so invested and involved and attached to a child. his or not his, because my father wasn't that. Her father wasn't that. None of the men that she'd ever seen was that. And so she marveled that not only had I found a man who loved me to no end, and just, I mean, when we first got married, it was idyllic. It was amazing. It was blissful. But I also loved my children that way. Fast forward many years, and the marriage changed into something that was cold and almost unrecognizable to where it started. And when I got divorced the second time, after 11 years, my mother said, "You amaze me. You reinvented yourself after the first marriage, and you're doing it again. And you don't stay in something that's hurting you and is toxic and is not meeting your expectations. You don't continue to pour yourself into it, as all of us were trained to do." So what would my mother say? What would my grandmother say? Well, I can't tell you exactly what my grandmother would say because, as I said, she never talked to me about any of that. But my mother was proud of me. My mother had no concept of what it was like to experience the love that I experienced, even though that love ended. And when I got divorced and I was able to experience that outside of marriage, my mother she wanted it for herself when my dad passed. That was her biggest dream. That was her greatest fantasy, to experience the love that I had as a single woman. And so why don't our marriages last like our grandparents and our parents' marriages did? Because we're not willing to put up with a lot of things, and we realize we can have better, and we're willing to reinvent ourselves. We're willing to walk away and struggle if that means we have to struggle. We have more options. We have more choices. We have more support. We have a different identity. I grew up with my identity wrapped up in my marriage, but I let that go in my early 30s. My mother didn't let that go until she was almost dead, until my father had passed. So we are different women, and that's a blessing, even though our grandmothers and mothers were great.